Hello, I'm Mr. Baker. Today we're going to talk about the last part of my unit on evolution, and that is the evidence for the interrelatedness of separate species. So we're going to talk a lot today about something called common ancestors, right? So you know how you and your cousins have the same grandparents? That's a common ancestor. But if you dial it up to 11 and think about your great, 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 etc., grandparents, they have a lot of great, 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 etc. grandkids, right? Now let's apply that to species, all right? So we're just going to kind of zoom out with common ancestor, all right? That's a vocab word. In my class, we will have a nice definition for it on Quizlet. Let's go ahead and get started. So the first evidences for evolution that I want to talk about are the fossil record. So ancient species are similar to modern species. We can see how some of them have evolved from one old species that's maybe not around anymore to a current species that is around through something called comparative anatomy, or we could have a very extensive record of the lineage through the fossils themselves. Right? Comparative anatomy is just a study of the anatomy, right? The shape of a creature, an organism, right? And comparing it, looking at how they are similar, right? So this example here is my nice, easy example of mammals that live in different environments and do very different things, but we all have arms of some kind, right? Or front legs in the case of a cat, or flippers in the case of a whale, right? And if we were to dissect each of these creatures, we're not going to do that in class, don't worry, but we've got some nice x-ray images that have been color-coded for us from the good people at the internet, right? We can see that they have similar bone structures. In each of these, this light blue color is the humerus. It's also the one closest to the shoulder, right? This part of your arm. Then on the inside of the arm, we have a bone that is called the radius in humans and the ulna on the outside. You can see that the next bone down in each of the legs or flippers or wings here, same coloration, same exact, I'm not going to use the word exact there. Let's say a very, very similar location and size relative to the other ones, right? Then we have carpals. Those would be your wrist, and metacarpals, your fingers kind of on the inside of your hand, right? Like this part of your hand, right? And then phalanges or fingers here. Again, we have the same, not necessarily number, right? The whale has one less, but the other three organisms here all have 5 appendages here, right? And we can see that they've got a very, very similar layout, right? So comparative anatomy, similar structures over many organisms. That means way back when they have a common ancestor that had this layout that then evolved, maybe radial adaptations, right, occurred along the way, but evolution occurred, and we've got a modern species that these 4 look very, very different. A human does not look very, very much like a cat or a whale or a bat, but we each have 5 appendages, including the head, right? 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head. And then we've got something like a whale, right, which has 2 flippers and then a tail that has very similar structure to our legs as well. Right? That's comparative anatomy. And we can look at 2 different types of comparative anatomy, the homologous structures, like we just talked about. Homologous, homo meaning same, right? Or we could talk about vestigial structures, which have a reduced form or function, right? Comparing to a relative species. In humans, easy ones to think about are wisdom teeth and appendix. Now, much more recently, we know that the appendix does have a function. Right? It acts as a safe haven for your gut microbiome, those bacteria that live in your intestines that help you break down things and digest them into nice, easy to use nutrients for your body. Right? Or the wisdom teeth, the extra set of molars in the back of your mouth. Like some people like me just don't have enough room for them and they have to get removed, but they would have helped our common ancestors to crush and break down and chew tougher food, right? But we've been cooking our food for so long and making it more tender and easier to eat that we don't really need them anymore. right? So they're still there, but they're getting smaller. Some people now are even being born without wisdom teeth, right? The next is biogeography, and this kind of touches into the idea of Pangea, where all continents used to be connected, right? This little segment would have happened after Pangea, right? But it's got South America, Africa, India. That's a subcontinent, but we're counting it. Antarctica and Australia. And we can see that through the fossil record that the remains of specific organisms occur through multiple present day continents, and they now have modern day descendants that look different, but they have common ancestors that had a larger range, right? Like the Cynoganthus, this four-legged lizard here that turned into geckos and large lizards, or the Glossopteris, which has now a bunch of different types of plants, including records that we're finding in Antarctica. Right? So across the globe, we've got fossil locations that show relatedness of common ancestor between multiple continents where they don't even live closer to one another anymore. Last one I want to talk about is comparative embryology, where we can look at embryos, the prenatal, right, before they are born, stages of development. We can see that a lot of animals, either egg born or live born, right, have similar shapes, right? And because they have similar shapes and similar stages of development, they probably have a common ancestor way back when, right? That's what comparative embryology says. That's all it says, right? So these are some sketches. They are not actual pictures, right? They're sketches from, some of them are from CT scans, some of them are from MRI scans of embryos in the womb or in the egg for each of these, right? And you can see that the label goes from early to late. That's stage of development, not stage of evolution. All right, so those are the types of evidences that we're going to talk about. There are some more molecular evidences that we'll read about in my class. I might be posting a card or another link in the description here to link you to a video that talks about those, or I might just host it on Classroom for my class or add it to the playlist here because I think it's a good resource. I hope this helps you in your understanding of evolution. Have a good one.